Welcome into the Action Network podcast. We are presented by FanDuel. I'm your host, Brendan Glasheen. Today's episode, NFL Conference Championship Best Bets. We've got two games coming your way on Sunday. San Francisco and Philadelphia, the afternoon game, followed by the AFC title game in Kansas City featuring the Chiefs and the Bengals. Our usual crew is here. Brandon Anderson, Jill Gallant, and Luke Swain, a.k.a. Vegas Refund. As a quick reminder, a subscription to Action Pro is how you get the most out of Action's award-winning app. And right now, Action is offering a pro subscription at 40% off. This is only being offered during the NFL playoffs. So if you don't already have Pro, now is the best time to subscribe and unlock all of the best features over on the Action app. Favorites historically excel in this round. In conference championship weekend, favorites go 26-12 straight up, 20-18 against the number in the last 20 years. Favorites in all other rounds are hitting at just 42% against the spread. Playoff underdogs altogether since 2017 are covering at a 61% clip. And home teams, so in this case, Philly, Kansas City, home teams in the conference championship game since 2011, 13-6 straight up, 9-10 against the spread. You can find our picks over in the Action app by searching Action Network NFL Picks. Just follow the account there. You get the Sunday six-pack as well. Okay, housekeeping's over. Brandon Anderson, start us off. Your first pick of three for the coming weekend.
I'm going to start out in the NFC, and I'm going to take that Eagles 49ers under. That was the bet that we talked about on our Sunday night recap for Monday. That was my favorite then, and I was wrong. I thought the line might actually drop this week. It's gone the other way. If you waited, I said I wasn't really rushing to the counter to get bets in. We're a point higher now, so I'll take the under 46.5 rather than the 45.5. Cap is mostly the same. I think both of these teams are going to struggle to score this week. I think points will be at a premium, very much like they were in that Niners-Cowboys game we saw last week. Both of these teams, as good as they've looked, have not really had a ton of testing or proving ground so far this year. Eagles, only 5 games against a top 12 defense. They've scored only 23 points a game in those when they've had a healthy outing. Niners, only 4 games like that, and they're under 20 points a game in those outings. So that's not a lot of chances to prove it, and we know both these defenses are really good. I don't love the matchup, how this works for either offense here. Eagles, we know, are going to be a run-heavy team. They're number 1 in rushing, but the Niners, great run defense. I know we devalue the linebackers, but I think this is a game where the Niners linebackers really make a difference. Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw. I think, D'Amico Ryans, he's a linebacker. That's the defensive coordinator. That's his background. He's going to have that team ready for this kind of somewhat gimmicky Eagles offense that I think is an offense that if you have more time to prep for and more talent against, I'm not so sure that they are going to put up a big number. On the other side, we talked about Brock Purdy. He hasn't faced a lot of great pass defense. He's averaged number 22 DVOA pass defense that he's faced so far. Well, last week we saw Dallas. Where'd the points go? Dallas was a really good defense. The Niners struggled with the ball. The Eagles are the number 1 pass defense, number 1 pass pressure team. So I think we're going to see the Niners are going to have to run, and they're going to have some chances there, but we got McCaffrey banged up. The Eagles are going to have to pass, and we've seen Jalen Hurts' numbers kind of slowly fall as the year went on. So I just think that points are going to be tough to come by here. The Niners have also been really turnover dependent. In their 13 wins, they've forced 31, but in their 4 losses, only 3 forced turnovers. The Eagles have only had 4 games all year with more than 1 turnover. So again, with the Cowboys, even when the Niners did score, it was often off of those turnovers when they got a shorter field there. So I just think we're going to have a grinded out, like an old classic defense, crazy battle. The Niners are the second slowest team in the league. The Eagles are 27th in pace in the second half. Those injury question marks, Jalen Hurts, Christian McCaffrey, Lane Johnson, these guys are all going to play, but they can really only play worse if they're hurt. So that can only help the under to me. I like the under here, under 46.5, and a little twist here, because I love this under better than anything else. At FanDuel, our sponsor, you can play the highest scoring team, and I'm using that to play my Bengals or Chiefs bet in the other game. Since I think both these teams go under both the other 2 teams, you can play Bengals plus 260 or Chiefs plus 240 effectively as my money line pick in the other game. So that's kind of my setup for that second game. But this pick is under 46.5.
Minimal factor, but there will be some wind as well in Philly on Sunday. So who knows how that affects Brock Purdy being a rookie quarterback in this spot. A rookie quarterback has never won in a conference title game. And as you mentioned, a run heavy Philadelphia team can certainly air it out, but it hasn't needed to this point in the postseason. And you hit on some injuries. We're coming to you on a record here on Thursday. Kyle Shanahan said no McCaffrey, no Elijah Mitchell. They did not practice again. Deebo Samuel limited in practice for the 49ers. Let's go to Luke. Your first pick for us, please.
So first off, I kind of just want to preface with this is the conference championship round. All these are the cream of the crop teams. Like there's no wrong argument for either side. So the Niners seem like they're the contrarian side right now, where I haven't heard a lot of love for them, but like any argument for them is true. Where we've had 21 weeks of games at this point, like these are going to be the sharpest numbers we see. This Niners number, I think, opened at 2.5, and it's still 2.5. The movement on the Bengals game, like that's totally just Mahomes, of course, where like it is rare to see any movement whatsoever, where these numbers are going to be the sharpest probably in sports all year for anything. So just know a lot of what I just stated, most of you listeners already know, but there's really very little edge, and you're really just playing your opinion, which is going to lead me to Eagles laying 2.5 at home against the Niners, which last week I took the Cowboys. That was somewhat of a painful loss, but like all of the points held true, where this was a step up in class against Brock Purdy in terms of defenses that he's faced against an elite pass rush, where you could see those points coming true. He was rattled. That pass rush was getting in his face and really playing to Brandon's under. Like, I don't see this Niners offense being able to have any more success this week against an even harder opponent in terms of defense, where the Eagles pass rush is the best in the league against this elite secondary, where like every point that we played against the Niners last week is holding true against them again this week, where like you can't, if I'm picking between Jalen Hurts and Brock Purdy, I mean, you got a rookie quarterback in the conference championship going against an elite pass rush. Like there's very few, and probably the most hostile environment in the entire league, maybe outside of Buffalo, which didn't do much last week, but Eagles minus 2.5. All of the variables from the Cowboys hold true to an upgraded defense in the Eagles. And then you have a rookie quarterback in a conference championship game in a hostile environment. This one was the first one I looked at. I don't think it's going to move, if anything, unless one of those key guys that Brandon mentioned is out, which I would be shocked if he would.
Tend to agree. This is the fifth time, as I mentioned, rookie quarterbacks in the conference title game, 0-4 in this spot. Mark Sanchez in 2009, Joe Flacco 2008, Big Ben in 2004. Those three circumstances, those three particular spots, they lost by double digits, or lost by more than a score. Sean King lost 11-6 back in 1999. Joe Gallant is a host for the Touchdown Show, and as he's been doing these NFL playoffs, he's going to the touchdown market for the first game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to do that again this week for the NFC Championship game. And I'm looking on the Eagles side. And I'm going to take Devonta Smith to score a touchdown at plus 190. And Devonta, he scored last week against the Giants. Now, we talked about this when we were betting receiving yard props and even just in general, but he's just getting a ton of work and targets. He's gotten 8 or more targets now in 10 straight games with 6 touchdowns in that stretch. And the Niners defense, the one thing I would just say about them is I think they're strong, but I think they could be thrown on. Like, they've given up 16 touchdowns to wide receivers this year, but they were also bottom 5 in passing yards allowed to the position. And as discussed on Thursday's edition of the Green Dot Daily by our friend of the podcast, Nick Giffen, the 49ers have given up a pass of 25 yards or more in 11 straight games. We've seen DK Metcalf have success against them, Devonta Adams. Now, these are wide receiver ones, but I'm more high on Devonta Smith than A.J. Brown, specifically in this matchup, because he is a little bit banged up. We have seen him get phased out, whereas I feel like Hurts still will go to Devonta in those crucial spots, especially on third down. We saw CeeDee Lamb have a 46-yard catch against them last week. Should have probably scored a touchdown, 10 catches, 117 yards. I love Devonta Smith in this matchup. I think he's scoring at least one touchdown on this defense.
Luke, you have a follow-up thought on this one? Because I know you were on Smith last week, and that was a painful beat for you, but just how the game script might look for Smith. And that was not me being sarcastic to make fun of that your pick didn't hit. I was being genuine.
It felt like he was sticking it to him.
I would love to have a therapy session on that hit, that not winning, where he had 60 yards at half. He needed 10 to go over.
Look what I did.
Which look what you did. Where he needed 10, and at half, it's like this is one of those scenarios where Killen was like, it's definitely not going to hit. And then first play, he drops a 10-yard pass, and then he has a 12-yard pass called back on a penalty. I love Devonta. He's an alpha. My next pick is actually going to be similar situation, different player. But yeah, I mean, like Devonta is the hottest receiver in the league right now, week to week. Jalen's healthy. Yeah, I'm going to have points that support this next.
Okay. Well, we don't get to have you on the recap show, so I figured we'd get that to air.
Yeah, you're riling me up.
Good. I like a fire
vibes for sure
on the pod. Yes, for sure. Okay, let's go to round 2. Brandon, you're up.
What can I do but go back to Devonta Smith here? After all of that, I got to have some Devonta Smith FaceTime here. Like, I got a bunch of props that are going to be in my article this week. I'm looking for Joe Burrow rushing attempts. No line yet for that one. I like Christian McCaffrey receiving yards, but the injury status, got to wait on that one. I got to get Luke's money back from last week. I'm going right back to the exact same bet that he made. Give me the Devonta Smith receiving yards over 65.5. So you've heard the case from both of them already. I'll add to it. The way that Smith is being used has really grown a lot over the last 2 months. So numbers from the first 11 games till the 7 most recent games, really huge splits here. First 11 games, Devonta Smith, 5 catches, 55 yards a game, about 7 targets a game. Since then, the last 7 games, that's gone up to 6.5 catches, 93 yards. So a huge jump from 55 to 93 and almost 10 targets a game. And it's not just a volume thing here. It's how they're using him. The yards per catch from under 11 to almost 15 yards per catch. They're getting him down the field. They're using him in the red zone. 5 touchdowns the last 7 games. So I like Joe's touchdown bet here as well. And he's playing nearly every snap right now. He's a good blocker, so he stays on for run plays. He's versatile. He plays in the slot. He can play outside. That's something that we saw from him when he won the Heisman. Obviously, we knew this guy was good. He just was too skinny, apparently, for anyone to draft him. But in that 7-game stretch we're talking about, 61 yards or better every game. So we're at a floor of 61. We only need 66 to hit our bet. Now, sorry, Luke, we didn't get the last couple yards last week, but to me, you watch that game, that's a good bet. That was the right bet. We made the right side. We're going back to the well again. This is a Devonta game here. We talked earlier, I think the Eagles are going to have to pass in this game. They're not going to be able to just run on this team. And by DVOA, the Niners are elite defending pass-catching running backs, and they're elite against wide receiver ones by receiving yards and catches. They're not great against other receivers. We've seen other receivers beat them. A lot of those yards Jill talked about have been to not the first guy. Well, the Eagles kind of have 2 wide receiver ones, and that's where I think Devonta can feast in this game. I project him at about 6 catches, 90 yards. I think he does have a better than 50-50 chance of a touchdown. At FanDuel, you can play that combo. 6 catches, 90 yards, and a touchdown. That's a plus 670. So you know how I like my escalators. I'm probably going to play that one a little bit. You can play Devonta at plus 270 to lead this game in receiving yards. I think if he does the numbers we're talking about, he'll have a good shot at that as well. And Luke and I talked about this a little bit last week. You can still get plus 4,500 Super Bowl MVP out there. So I'm in on Devonta Smith. Luke said he's the hottest guy in football catching passes right now. I think it's a great time to keep playing him and shrug off the bad beat. We're going to get Luke's money back and make a little extra this week.
So I am now fascinated by Luke's pick. He sort of adhered to it a moment ago, and how the Devonta Smith v. the other receiver you're going to talk about, how could these picks conflict if you're going to go to AJ Brown?
So I don't know. I didn't think it was out of spite, but I'm going to go with AJ Brown over 70.5 yards receiving. Which this is like the zigzag theory where like you lose, you should like don't get off the bandwagon, hit it again. Which I'm literally jumping onto the other side of this receiving corpse. But the reason I'm on this, and at the same time, I do like Jalen Hurts over passing attempts as well for a lot of these reasons, which I'm going to go with AJ, of course. But like the Niners rank 10th in terms of passing expectation in neutral game script. Which the best run D that the Eagles have faced this year was the Titans. And it Hurts through 39 times, excuse me. So we do expect, and I think it's a consensus that we're going to be expecting the Eagles to throw it a lot more relative to what their season average has been. And AJ Brown, he is an alpha. Devonta is an alpha. I don't know the exact number, but there are plenty of games enough to make me comfortable with both of these guys over, where I think there's like 2 or 3 games where both of these guys have gone over 100 in the same game, which AJ Brown was complaining in game. He just had a quote. I'm not going to read it word for word, but he basically said, I'm a dominant receiver. I want the ball. If you throw it to me 100 times, I want it 101 times, which he said that in his press conference. And I always love taking those tidbits in press conferences where like, this is a conference championship game. Like they're not going to tailor their game plan over making like player A, XYZ happy. But at the same time, like I can't get past, like, this is AJ Brown. It's going to be in the back of Jalen Hurts' mind. Devonta is the guy that's been getting all the love. And I do feel like, and I totally agree with your pick on the over, but I do feel like last week, this opened at 60. It's creeping up. Like at the same time, it's like being 3 yards off of AJ Brown, where probably in the regular season, they were 10 yards apart, where we had 70 or 60. This just feels like, I don't want to say a buy low, but Devonta's getting all the love, and AJ can hit this in one play easy. He's gone over, I want to say 5 of the last 6 games. The last 2 games, he was just shy of 100 yards with 4 catches, which he gets 5-6 is going to fly over against the Titans last year, which when he was on the Titans against the Niners, excuse me, he went 11 for 145. Which Titans were run first, very similar defense, pass funnel. Give me AJ Brown.
I'm glad you brought up the Titans game. They met week 13 and both receivers, Brown and Smith, went over 100 yards in that game. And that was, of course, a motivation spot for Brown playing against his old opponent. And Brandon, that's why I would be, go ahead.
Yes. What you just said is 100% what I was speaking to, but I was also speaking to when AJ Brown was on the Titans and they faced the Niners last year. Oh. He went for 11 and 145, which was a pass funnel game as well. So both hold true.
Okay, cool. So we're 2 different points, but I got you now. Brandon, that was my only concern. Brandon, my only concern for your under would be that if there is a unit I'd be nervous about is that San Fran can't get beat deep, which is what you're sort of arguing for Smith and what Luke could argue for AJ Brown.
Yeah, but I think that's why I feel better about yardage here than touchdowns. I know Gilles got the touchdown pick as well, but 46.5, we can squeeze a touchdown in there. Get our bet for all 3 of us. But yeah, I think that's where you hope that, hopefully they move the ball, but maybe they stall in the red zone, and maybe, you get some chances to get the ball down the field, like Luke had on the stat where the 25-yard plus pass. I tried to get creative for a while. I was looking for like Quez Watkins, longest catcher, that sort of thing, but weird snap counts. Hard to know who else is going to be out there. But I think you can get some yardage, get down the field, and still be able to get under 46.5. I really thought my numbers have it significantly lower than that. So it's really a bunch higher than I thought. My question for Luke is, so if you're a listener here and you just heard I made the case for Devonta Smith over receiving yards, You made the case for AJ Brown over receiving yards. I think they're both good cases. Like you said, it's all sharp here. If I'm listening, can I play both of those? Or do I need to pick which one do I like better so I'm not playing two receivers over? What would you do here, Luke?
Good host question by Brandon. Very well done. Go ahead, Luke.
Yes, I think you can. And I wish I had the exact number about how many games they've both gone over. Where like this game is like, I really believe that Hurts is going to be throwing way above expectation, which leaves room for both of them to hit. In my like, you're the math fazant with like EV, etc. Where what if you just took both of them 100 yards alts, like they're probably plus 200. One of them hits, which I believe one of them will hit. You're covered.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I agree. I think you can play both of these. I think that the yardage is out there for both of them. AJ Brown really has been putting up lots of like 90s and 100s and into the triple digits. But maybe the way to do it, like you said, is if you do feel like I agree. I'm on looking at Hurts attempts overs, just lots of passing here because I don't think they're going to be able to run as much. And I think if you like that angle, maybe you don't just take the two traditional overs like we're talking about. Maybe you do what Luke said. Maybe you skip the traditionals and just play both of them at 100 plus or for the high number and hope that you get one of them to hit. You're probably not going to get both of those, but you get the higher payout, kind of covers the fact that one of your bets might end up losing a little bit. So I think you got some options. You can be creative. We have the same game parlay. If you like Jill and my bet for both Devonta Smith, you can get creative that way. So I think you can play around with it.
I was just going to mention that for the end of the regular season of the final 6 games of the regular season, excluding week 18, they both topped this number, the 70, the 65 and the 70. They both topped those numbers in 5 of the last 6 games to end the regular season.
There you go.
And Titans' best rush defense they face, like I referenced, which like Jalen Hurts threw it 39 times that game, which he averages, I believe, 31. So it was over expectation. And AJ Brown and Devonta both went over 100. Both of them went over. We had 8 receptions, 5 receptions. And they're both getting A+ targets. And in a game that is above expectation, like they can both get this pretty easily.
The Titans game this year, the other one was the Gardner Minshew start at Dallas. They both reached 100 yards receiving in that game as well. So it doesn't matter who the quarterback is to a degree. Just referencing what happened down the stretch, because that's something to think about too, right? Down the stretch, you got to factor in, well, Hurts wasn't the quarterback, right? So, okay, Jill, what do you got for your second pick going back to the anytime touchdown market?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the NFC Championship game, but I'm going to take my favorite 49er bet in this game, and it's going to be George Kittle. It's the best value on the board right now for the Niners, mainly because of what we just kind of talked about, what this Niners defense is all about, the Eagles defense, rather, how they're a funnel defense, how they are strong versus wide receivers, but weaker over the middle. So in 8 games with Brock Purdy at quarterback, he's got 7 touchdowns. Even last week against the Cowboys, even though points were at a premium, he was the main receiving option for the 49ers. 5 catches, 95 yards. We know that he has decent hands because he could still catch a ball that bounces off his face and still make it happen. And one of the reasons why I'm looking more at Kittle as opposed to a Brandon Ayuk or a Jawan Jennings isn't necessarily because of the odds, but it's because of the Eagles defense. They were actually first in the NFL in explosive plays allowed to wide receivers this season. So the value just hasn't been there for a Brandon Ayuk. Like, whereas I liked Brandon Ayuk last week against the Cowboys, I don't necessarily like him in this matchup. So Kittle to me is the best value on the board for the 49ers. That's where they can, the Eagles can get beat. So I like George Kittle if I'm betting anybody for the 49ers. So George Kittle is my second best bet.
Excellent. Let's move on to the final round of picks. As you might imagine, I think we're done with this game. We're going to go to the AFC title game now for our final round of picks. Brandon, what do you got?
Yeah, let's go Bengals second half. So I'm going to take Bengals second half. Got to look around at the lines. Obviously, like Luke mentioned, that line's been bouncing around. Chiefs open favorites. Bengals got up to a couple points favor. Now we're back to Chiefs. Who knows by the time you listen? So look around. My favorite line I'm seeing right now is a +0.5 at just under even money there, or you can just do the money line if you want. Basically, if I'm getting anything plus money or the money line, I think the Bengals win the second half. So here's the case. Here's the stat that you know on this game that you've heard all week on this podcast and everywhere else. last 31 Chiefs games, Chiefs are 26-2 against everyone but the Bengals, 0-3 against the Bengals. So I look back at my notes from all three of those games, and some of the common themes that stood out to me. Number one, Bengals receivers just winning one-on-one, beating those Chiefs corners. I saw a lot of Joe Burrow running. Like I mentioned, those rushing attempts, overs. But the main thing you see in those games, you see Chiefs early, you see Bengals late. That was consistently the theme that happened. And I see a lot of big Lou Anarumo adjustments throughout the game. And you've heard me mention a stat over and over this year. Bengals second halves against the spread. In the last 27 games now, including postseason, 23-4 against the spread for the Bengals in the second half alone, 85% cover rate. This matchup against the Chiefs, it was what alerted me to that trend in the first place because it was such a stark split. I believe the Chiefs have scored 20 points in the second half of all three of these games combined against the Bengals. So Lou Anarumo, he doesn't have the most talented defense. You can't even name a lot of Bengals defenders, but they're versatile. They have a different defense every week. I hate to say it, but a la Bill Belichick, they come out with a new scheme, a new plan. Are they going to drop 8? Are they going to rush more? Are they going to time it? Or are they going to bring extra blitzers? I think that I like the Bengals overall in this game. I think the offensive line for the Chiefs doesn't quite hold up, and we don't know how healthy Mahomes is, but we know he's not 100%. But it's possible that they come out early and put up some points. I'm kind of hedging against that possibility here by playing just the second half, because if I'm Lou Anarumo and I'm that Bengals defense, I think they're going to learn, they're going to try some stuff early and see, okay, what works against Pat and what doesn't, because everything's not going to work. He's still Pat Mahomes. He's still going to do some stuff, but I think they're going to try to figure out how mobile is he? Should we be blitzing? Should we be dropping? And then lock into what really works late in the game. That's what they've done so well. So I like that side of the ball. On offense, I think the later the game goes, the more Burrow just gives the ball to his receivers, lets them make the play. And I really like what we saw from Cincy last week, that power running game that took over against the Bills. We know about all the Bengals offensive line injuries. Well, one of the best ways to protect your line is run the ball. Just get off on the snap and dominate in the run game. First 4 weeks of the season, the Bengals were frustrating me. They were frustrating us on a podcast. They looked like the stuff we hated last year. Since week 4, the Bengals are second in the NFL in rushing DVOA. The Chiefs are 22nd on running defense that same stretch. I think the Chiefs could really struggle to stop the run here, especially as the game goes on and the Bengals start to tire them down a little bit. Kansas City has only faced 2 top 10 rushing offenses all year. They are 30th in DVOA defensively in those 2 games. This is the toughest rushing attack they will face all year. Joe Mixon and that rushing attack are actually efficient now. So I looking at some Mixon overs here. By the way, I thought about making this my third bet here, but there's not really a good way to track this one. But maybe my favorite bet of the weekend. Joe Mixon right now is plus 225 to finish the postseason with the most rushing yards. You can play that at FanDuel. I love that bet because I think that he will be leading after this round. It's basically him and McCaffrey right now. And if the Bengals win, I think we're on lock. If the Bengals don't win, I think we still have a chance anything other than a Chiefs 49ers matchup. So I'll write about that one a little bit more in the article if you want some info. But basically, defense adjustments late, power run game takes over. I just like the Bengals, and I like the second half better in case Mahomes does get out to a quick start. I think he wears down as the game goes on. You always have a chance of another injury. Give me the Bengals second half, and I will wait and get my money later in the game this time.
So Chiefs, just to kind of play through the timeline here, Chiefs opened as favorites on Sunday, and then the money came in on Cincinnati. They became favorites, and the Chiefs were a short underdog. It would have been just the second time in Patrick Mahomes' career to be a home dog. The other case would have been week 6 this season, home against Buffalo. Kansas City was an underdog in that game. But as we know, we heard from Mahomes. We saw Mahomes on the practice field. We saw him walk off the podium without a limp. And now Patrick Mahomes is a favorite. And this will be his 17th start in January or later. He's been favored in all 17 games. So leading into this 17th game, 16 game sample size, 12-4 straight up. And this would be the case too. If indeed it flips back the other way and the Bengals become favorites, this would be the first time in Mahomes' career he opens as a favorite, then closes as a dog. But as we know now, Chiefs -1 is the current line. Let's go to Luke, second pick.
So I think the line move on based off of the Mahomes injury is fascinating so far, where I think they when it opened at 3, they priced in the injury, which it is a lot easier to plan an injury the day of than it is like a day or two later, where this line was moving, where it got to Cincinnati, a favorite. And at that point, I was honestly debating whether like Mahomes was even going to be out, where like they're at this point, like I said, like these are the sharpest lines. Like we have 20 weeks of games to price these out, where there isn't anyone of market influence that can move this line to Cincinnati -1.5, unless Mahomes is out or he is just insanely hampered. Where then he had his press conference and the videos start coming out, which honestly, and like everyone, I watched like that press conference walk through the door that lasted 3 seconds, probably 100 times trying to find a limp. And I didn't. And Toradol is a hell of a drug. I will say that. And whether he took it before the press conference or what, but I'm just not sold on him being healthy. And like the Jags game, which I was on, the Chiefs, and the Chiefs should have won by 100. I just don't see how he's going to be anywhere close to 100%. And it's not really the reason. And I went against the Bengals, and the market was against the Bengals again last week, and they did it again. And I am done with that. And I am siding with the team of destiny. And there is this Bengals team that are defying all odds, and I am totally sold on them. I've said that they're my only Super Bowl future. But with the Mahomes injury, with this Bengals team humming, they got the run game going. The one concern I do have is the Bengals offensive line was the narrative last week about the Bills taking advantage of it. And I do think the snow is somewhat of an equalizer. But it's always the week after the narrative that these types of things kick in. And Chris Jones is a bad dude. And and that is the one concern, but they were getting it out, and we touched on how quick he's getting it out, and in the snow he was getting it out just as quick. And they're 3-0, and I was on the Chiefs when they played them earlier in the middle of the season and lost that. And it's Bengals or nothing, and I'm so happy we're recording this on Thursday, so there's nothing that can get me to flip, because I'm on this and I believe in them. I would definitely wait. Right now is Bengals +1. I don't think it's more about when you want to jump on them. I think the more videos or news that comes out on Mahomes, it's going to gradually tick back up. So I'd wait till Sunday. And I mean, first drive, we're going to know. Lots of live opportunities too. So Bengals +1 on Sunday.
Latest reporting as far as the Bengals O-line, Alex Kappa went to Bengals practice. He was in drills. He did not participate in the drills he observed, but no walking boot on the left foot. And I think Jonah Williams is also questionable. So those are two items, two players that do, Brandon, help the case for backing the Bengals too.
Yeah, the offensive line definitely is a concern, but I think I want to remind too with Patrick Mahomes, and we know this, but we tend to not think of it this way. Health is not binary. Just because we see Patrick Mahomes practicing and everyone's like, oh, okay, Mahomes is playing, we're good to go. Like, that's not how this works. We know that he's almost certainly going to play. Everyone believes that. But what Mahomes do we get? Are we getting 95% or 90%, 80, 60? We don't know. And probably that percent slowly erodes as the game goes on. And it could quickly erode. On one bad play, it's always a risk of re-injury there. So I think be careful if you just see Mahomes not limping in a 10-second clip, or see him practicing, mistaking that for, oh, okay, Mahomes is good to go now. Like, those are not the same thing. And I did not expect to be on the Bengals here, especially in a possible Mahomes home underdog spot. But like Luke kind of made the case, if I just zoom way out here, I look at these two teams. The Bengals have clearly the better running game. They have clearly better receivers. They are clearly better run defense. They're better pass pressure. They might be better at special teams this year. I might trust their coaches more right now. The one big equalizer is the MVP, Patrick Mahomes. But Joe Burrow is pretty good. And if Patrick Mahomes is not 100%, if he's 95 or 90 or 80 or whatever percent, Joe Burrow is not that far behind. And if that suddenly is even close to even or Burrow is ahead, I think the Bengals might just be better at almost everything here. So I like the Bengals too. I just like the second half a little better, but I think we're in lockstep on this one.
Yeah, in the last point I just want to make is there is an argument, and you've probably heard it already, that Chiefs is a 1-point favorite at home. There is insane value there with Patrick Mahomes even playing in the game, which is not wrong. Like if Mahomes was healthy, they'd probably be, the Bengals were just 5.5-point underdogs at the Bills, where the Chiefs would probably be 6.5-point favorites if Mahomes was healthy. And when you accommodate for his injury, they were 3, then it comes down. But at the same time, it just fine, have the value. I'm going to take the 100% quarterback with all these weapons. And yeah, it's the Chiefs, there is value. And the teasers are when they were +1, kind of missed that boat, but.
All right, Jill, what do you got for us? You think there's going to be some scoring by Cincinnati?
Yeah, before I give my pick, I just wanted to mention one more thing about Patrick Mahomes, and just as a reference point of where he's at from a health standpoint. So the last 2 matchups that they have played, his touchdown odds were around +450, +500. And I think it's really telling on where he's at physically, the fact that they have his touchdown odds right now at +850 at FanDuel to score. So easily the highest odds he's had all season. It's been the highest odds probably since 2019. So just something to consider if you're looking at touchdown bets for this game. But for me, the guy that I want to bet, and it's similar to what we did last week, we want to take the slot receiver going against this Chiefs defense. So we're going to be taking Tyler Boyd to score a touchdown in this game, similar to why we took Christian Kirk last week. He scored the first touchdown for the Jaguars, pretty much in the exact same script that we had laid out. And KC, they gave up the second most touchdowns to the slot during the season. So that includes both tight ends and wide receivers. So that's why I'm not totally discounting Hayden Hurst in this spot, but I just like Tyler Boyd a little bit better. And because Boyd lines up exclusively in the slot, he had 5 touchdowns this year. In the last 3 matchups with the Bengals, the Chiefs have given up 8 passing touchdowns, 5 of them obviously to wide receivers. So I think all the Bengals wide receivers are in play. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. I just love the value most on Boyd, specifically because he'll be lining up in the slot. So based on the odds and matchup, Tyler Boyd is my final best bet of championship weekend.
All right, here we go. Listen up. I got suckered into this, and I did some capping myself. So I'm going to give out a pick. I'm going to give out a pick.
Motherfucking yeah.
We won't name names, but I got peer pressured into giving a pick. So I did some capping before we recorded the show. Here's what I got. So throughout the course of the week, we had Jill referenced our pal Nick Giffen, who works in the predictive analytics department. So does Sean Kerner. And they were on this particular player last week. They decided to fade Joe Mixon in the passing game, which was then, in a way, promoting the other running back in Cincinnati. Samaje Perine, over 15.5 receiving yards is my pick for the podcast.
Love it.
Perine, last week, 5 targets in the past. I have analysis too there. Okay. Sorry. And then we'll find out if you want your refund. Okay. 5 targets for Samaje Perine against Buffalo for 31 yards. So he cleared the number, no problem last week. Utilized in the passing game. Mixon's been a beast on the ground, but in the passing game, they've gone to Perine. Last year's AFC title game, Samaje Perine, a factor. Targeted 4 times, 3 catches, 43 yards in that game. Also scored a touchdown, Jill. Samaje Perine in the end zone for those Bengals. So you look back and think, well, Kansas City's with Chris Jones, rightfully so, coming off the edge. There could be some problems there, right? Well, I look at Kansas City's softest puppy poo schedule down the stretch. There were some games in a trailing game script, possibly, where the running back from the opposition had some games. Mike Boone of Denver, Latavius Murray, 16 yards, 33 yards, respectively, in those occurrences, and they went head-to-head. Another name, DJ Dallas was a passing impact player in the game against Seattle. The other thing is I'm really tailing Kerner here in terms of his fade of Joe Mixon, under receptions, 3.5, under passing yards, 24.5. Samaje Perine's been a real factor for this offense. And if we think there's going to be a lot of attention on their 2 main weapons, I know you talked about Boyd there a second ago, but in Chase and in Higgins, they have utilized the pass catching running back. And what better way to, like you said, Brandon, earlier, get the ball, run the ball well, stuff it right in the guy's gut and get to work. There's also no problem with Joe Burrow dumping it off to the running back. Samaje Perine, over 15
Get to work.
receiving yards.
Get to work.
I love it.
No, if the offensive line's an issue, like where like that was a narrative last week, and all of a sudden Chris Jones just eating, and the Chiefs are taking advantage of the narrative that we all thought would happen last week. Perine it's gonna fly over. So
it also helps, Luke, that the Chiefs ranked dead last to receptions to running backs this season and were bottom 3 in receiving yards. So I'm not 100% certain on the side with Kerner, but I do feel like if Mixon isn't getting it done, Perine definitely, especially in the second half, if the Bengals are trailing, is going to get a ton of work. So good for you on finding some value.
Brandon, do you care to weigh in on this pick?
I agree with all of it. I have that one in my notes as a possibility. Chiefs are 28th in DVOA against opposing running backs, receivers. I love it. This is definitely a good one. He might need to be out there more as a pass blocker as well. If that line's having some issues, then you get a few more chances. You might get a 2-minute drill. You get a few receptions. You might go over this on one drive or even one play. So I think it's a great bet. We're all in on Samaje Perine.
Let's go. All right. Well, I've only made one other pick on this show, and I think it was end of the year.
Rams money line.
Yep, you knew it. You knew it, my friend. And so did David. And I didn't even put it in the doc because I wanted to surprise you all. So I got peer pressured, went to work, and here we go. Hosting and giving out picks. So suck on that. That's it. I think we're good. We're not going to do a look ahead because how can we do that? We need to see how these games play out. And then we'll have the recap show on Sunday. Let's recap the picks before we get out of here. Brandon Anderson is on the Philadelphia, San Francisco under 46.5. Devonta Smith over receiving yards at 65.5. And he likes Cincinnati second half. Shop around. Take a look at Cincinnati getting points as of now. Second half spread. Luke is on Philadelphia, -2.5. AJ Brown over 70.5 receiving yards, and he's on Cincinnati now +1. Kansas City now the favorite as we come to you on this Thursday recording. And Jill has 3 anytime touchdown picks: Devonta Smith, George Kittle, and Tyler Boyd. And your boy here is on Samaje Perine over 15.5 receiving yards.
Your boy.
10 picks, not 9 on today's episode. That'll do it for the Action Network podcast, our NFL Conference Championships Best Bets, presented by FanDuel. For Brandon Anderson, Luke Swain, Joe Gallant, Brendan Glasheen, you all enjoy the games. Recap show comes your way Sunday night, Monday morning, and we'll talk to you again real soon. Thanks.